is the history part of our show. And to understand the culture of the Cajuns, you need to understand the history, the exploration, and how it was settled. Right now, a lot of people would say that it was with Columbus in 1492 that came through and discovered America. Of course, he didn't discover America. We had native people here before. And we also know for a fact that the Vikings came to the North American continent long, long before he did. In fact, you can see, in fact, they're discovering mounds right now in St. John Island in Canada. They're recent discoveries of Viking settlements. So they were the first ones, but that really has nothing so much to do with Louisiana, at least not directly and not yet. So the Spanish in the 1500s started exploring all of South America, Central America, and the southern part of what's known as the United States, including the Louisiana area. Now, they did have natives before. In fact, there's some discovery about 14,500 years ago of the first Native Americans. They disappeared. About 4,000 years after that, there's another settlement. They're finding Indian mounds and burial mounds from that. But by the time the settlers came in from other parts of Europe and settling in the 1700s, there were only 3 tribes around that time. One of the reasons why they were so slow in coming down, there they heard how hostile the Indians were. In fact, they really were not, except for one. There was one tribe that was a little bit hostile. The others were very friendly and actually helped the settlers survive through this time. Now, in this part, and in doing this, it's important to understand that at first it was just the Spanish, the French came in, the Irish came in, the Germans, they were all part of this settlement. In fact, even after the area what we now call Mexico, Mexico considered the Louisiana area, and everything west of the Mississippi is considered Louisiana, or was back then, until the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 by Thomas Jefferson, our 3rd president of the United States. So it was in the 1700s that the Northern Europeans started to come into the Louisiana area, right? The Irish and the Germans had a community there as well. And in that time, they were all settling. They were getting along with the 3 tribes of the Native Americans. And this is what was considered the Louisiana area. Everything west of the Mississippi was considered Louisiana. In fact, after Mexico, or what became known as Mexico, separated from Spain, they considered everything west of the Mississippi theirs. And that became a little bit of the conflict later in American history that we will read about later. Now, I do want to make one thing clear. A lot of this information is I heard as a child, and in all the history I'm going to tell you, some of it I just know. Some of it I've read in books. One very fine book is called Tesh by Shane K. Bernard. Some of the information I gave you today is from there. All right? It's a very important book. Go to our website. I'll tell you how to get hold of it. All right? I'm going to give you other books and other information that's going to be very helpful. If you have interest in going beyond just the little talks I'm going to give you.